In the depths of Hindu literature lies the story of Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean of milk. At first, it appears like a tale of gods and demons searching for nectar of immortality. But when seen with the inner eyes, it becomes a timeless map of the mind, a guide to how awareness churns the unconscious, how consciousness rises through conflict, and how clarity is born through patience. This is not just a simple story, it is the story of all of us, all of humanity. It's the story of how awareness can bring the balance to all of our emotions. Before we proceed with the story of Samudra Manthan, let's quickly take a look at how our mind operates. Our mind is like an iceberg where only a small part is visible above the surface, the conscious mind, which is around 10%. That's what we actively think about, the decisions, awareness, and the present focus. Just below it lies the pre-conscious mind, about 40%, holding the memories and information that can be recalled whenever it is needed, like searching through a library. But the largest portion, nearly 50%, is the unconscious mind, the hidden reservoir of instincts, emotions, fears, and desires that shape much of our behavior without us realizing it. Together, these three levels of the mind drive our thoughts, choices, and actions, reminding us that most of what influences us happens beneath the surface of awareness itself. So let's come back to the Samudra Manthan story, which is beautifully written in the scriptures so it can be conveyed easily to everyone in the form of a story. The story is Rishi Durvasa visits Indra in the heavens and offers him a garland of marigold flowers. Indra, instead of wearing the garland, puts it on his elephant Airavat that tramples the garland beneath its legs because it doesn't like the smell of the flowers. So Rishi Durvasa curses Indra for his ego, and hence Indra loses control of heavens to powerful Bali. That's the story in the context. So the Devas, the gods, are completely weakened because of the arrogance shown by Indra, and the gods lose all their strength, and the Asuras, their rivals, gain the upper hand. So, to seek the help and advice because they have lost all the power, the Devas or the gods turn to Lord Vishnu, who suggests as a solution to churn the great ocean of milk to extract the amṛita or the nectar of immortality. But this task cannot be done alone by the gods. The Asuras must join them as well, and so the stage is set. The gods and the Asuras, the light and the shadow, higher and lower impulses that are coming together for a single purpose. If we have to consider an ideal mind or an ideal working of the mind where the decision making begins, the higher impulses of clarity and virtue, they cannot act alone. The lower impulses like the cravings, fear, ego, and all our hidden things must also be engaged. Awareness means confronting the whole of ourselves. That's where the focus lies. That's actual awareness in the ideal mind, not just the parts we like. That's really not the awareness. The ocean is the unconscious mind, deep and full of secrets. Both light and dark forces must churn together in order for awareness to really rise and operate in a real conditioned fashion of the mind. The story of Samudra Manthan exists in various scriptures of India. The great epic Mahabharata, which has 18 chapters, which are called as Parvas, and it is there in the Adi Parva and the Astika Parva, and also the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Purana, Vishnu Purana, Padma Purana, Kurma Purana, Shiva Purana, and the Devi Bhagavat Purana. The Samudra Manthan story is not just in the ancient scriptures or the various temples around India and all over Asia. The Samudra Manthan is celebrated even today. There is a beautiful depiction in Bangkok, Thailand, Suvarnabhumi Airport of the Samudra Manthan story. As the story goes, the mountain Mandara is chosen as the churning rod. Vasuki, the great serpent, becomes the rope. The Devas take one side, which is the tail of the serpent Vasuki, and the Asuras take the other side, which is towards the head of the serpent Vasuki. And they start pulling back and forth, round and round, thus starting the churn of the ocean of milk. The Devas taking the tail or being away from the head of the serpent, whereas the Asuras are daring and take hold of the serpent near the head, where it can be more dangerous and you are prone to be bitten. There is more deeper meaning instead, where the rise of gods needs to happen from the tail and then progress towards the head. So it needs to be from the bottom all the way going up, reflecting from bottom part of our body all the way towards the head. In the human body, Mandara or the mountain Mandara is the spine, the axis of consciousness. Vasuki is the breath or the prana moving between opposites like the Ida and the Pingala Nadi, the left and the right channels of energy, also breathing from the left side of the nostril and the right side of the nostril. The Devas and Asuras are the constant push and pull within us, the reason and desire, hope and fear, compassion and anger. So neuroscience calls this the dynamic tension between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system or the amygdala. Churning is awareness itself, the process of pulling all the opposites, creating friction and forcing the depths of the mind to reveal what lies hidden. As the Samudra Manthan progresses, the ocean boils, waves rise, and finally treasures and terrors begin to emerge. The first thing to rise out of the Samudra Manthan or the churning is poison, the deadly halahala, threatening to destroy the gods, demons, and the world itself. Nobody can bear it. It is Shiva who steps forward, consuming the poison and holding it in his throat, becoming Nilakanta, the blue-throated one. This moment of the halahala rising or the poison is very essential when we churn our own consciousness through meditation, self-inquiry, or deep decision-making. The first things to arise are the toxins, which are the suppressed fears, painful memories, unconscious impulses, and so on. Neuroscience tells us the same. Trauma lives in the amygdala, and when brought to awareness, it feels very dangerous, just like the poison. But like Shiva, awareness can hold the position without swallowing it. So emotional regulation means we do not deny pain nor let it consume us. We contain it, transform it, and keep going into arising with awareness. As the churning continues, wonders start to emerge beyond the halahala, like the celestial beings, divine jewels, sacred animals, all of these divine beings, like Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune and wealth, Kaustuva, the most valuable jewel in the world, Parijata, the divine flowering tree, which has very nice smelling flowers, Varuni, the goddess and creator of intoxicating beverages, Dhanvantri, the doctor, Chandra, the beautiful moon, Kamadhenu, the wish-granting divine cow, Kalpariksha, the wish-granting tree, Airavata, the elephant of Indra, Apsaras, the various divine nymphs like Ramba, Menaka, Punjikasthala, and so on. Uchchaishravas, the divine seven-headed horse. Sharanga, the bow of Vishnu. Shanka, Vishnu's conch. Amrita, the nectar of immortality. The Devas and the Asuras rush to claim the Amrita, but Vishnu intervenes, ensuring that nectar reaches only the deserving. This is the reward of sustained awareness. When the unconscious is churned with patience, gifts emerge: clarity, creativity, compassion, balance. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the rewiring of circuits through repeated effort, bringing new insights, new strengths, and finally comes the nectar, which is the higher awareness. Freedom from compulsive cycles, a mind that lasts and tastes immortality by realizing its own imperishable nature. In the end, the Devas or the gods regain their power, the Asuras are subdued, and the cosmic balance is restored. The ocean, which was once turbulent, becomes calm again. The churning was not merely for nectar or immortality, but for the wisdom that only comes when one faces both the poison and the treasure. All of these depictions of the celestial beings attribute to specific things like Lakshmi is the ability to achieve your lakshya or the aims of life. Kaustuba, you are viewed as a valuable jewel of this world. Parijata, you are viewed as a similar to divine smelling flower. Varuni, life becomes so beautiful that you feel intoxicated and happy in life. Dhanvantri, you become the cure, similar to a doctor. Chandra, you are viewed beautiful as the moon. Kamadhenu is viewed as getting all wishes granted because you have got awareness and are working in a focused fashion. Kalpariksha, viewed as stable and wish-achieving tree. So Airavat, viewed as a ruler over all the senses, which was Indra. Indra is Indriya and the senses. Airavat is what he rides, and when you're riding above Airavat, you're viewed as a ruler over the senses. Apsaras, everybody sees that you are a divine creation and you're beautiful, and meanwhile you are also seeing everybody as divine creations and as beautiful. Uchcha Shravas rule the vision of the seven colors seen by the eyes, or ruling all the 7 days of the week. Sharanga, the magic of Vishnu's bow. Shanka, the magic of Vishnu's conch. Amrita, the nectar of immortality or the moksha. And for us, the story is a map of consciousness. The mind is the ocean. Awareness is the churning. Poison is the first confrontation with the shadow. The treasures of awareness are the gifts of practice, and nectar is the state of clarity, the steady awareness that transcends life and death. In neuroscience, this is the integration of networks, the harmony of the brain and the body, the emergence of higher states of consciousness. Samudra Manthan is the story of every seeker, every mind, every decision-making process that moves from the confusion towards clarity. The Samudra Manthan is not a tale that is locked in the past and is only available to a few of the humans. It is happening within us every day. Every time we churn the ocean of our own mind, every time we face off poison, every time we discover inner treasures, we are reliving this eternal story of the Samudra Manthan. Awareness is the journey, and consciousness is the nectar, and wisdom is the calm ocean that is left behind. The Samudra Manthan has a really good parallel mapping. The ocean is the unconscious mind. The Devas and the Asuras are the higher and the lower impulses of the prefrontal cortex versus the amygdala. The Mandara mountain is the spinal axis. Vasuki is the breath or the oscillations of the prana. Poison is the traumas and the fears in the amygdala. Shiva is the awareness containing emotional toxicity. treasures are emerging as new neural gifts, the balance of memory and the joy. Nectar is the integrated consciousness. This is the gamma wave coherence. We live in a world of sensations. What we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. And this overall defines our daily experience. Yet beneath these five senses lies another force, the five pranas, subtle currents of energy that power the body and the mind. Together, they weave the tapestry of perception, consciousness, and even our deepest states of rest. Today, we explore the connection of the senses and the pranas and how they lead us into the mystery of deep sleep that we experience almost every day. In the Vedic tradition, the five senses are called indriyas, and hence comes the connection to the Vedic god Indra. Each of the senses is a doorway to the world. Smell is linked to earth, and that is the reason we say, smell the earth after the fresh rains. Vision is linked to fire, and we usually say the person has fire in his eyes when it comes to ambitions. Hearing is linked to space and exists all around us. Taste is linked to water, and touch is linked to air. These senses are not passive. Each actively draws in information, shapes our perception, and fuels all the thoughts. Neuroscience now maps these to different brain regions: the olfactory bulb, visual cortex, auditory pathways, taste receptors, and touch sensitive neurons. Together, they form a conscious field of experiences in our life. From a neuroscience perspective, the olfactory bulb is responsible for smell. Visual cortex of the brain supports vision and our perception through the eyes. There are auditory pathways to support our perception of sound. Various taste receptors in the brain allow us to enjoy different kinds of food. The tactile, touch-sensitive receptors in the brain help us process the sense of touching and experiencing various things of this world. In the thousands of years worth of Vedic history, there is the epic Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna was guiding Arjuna during the great Kurukshetra war, when Arjuna was questioning in his mind whether to fight with his closest relatives and cousins. Whenever there is representation of a chariot with horses and the reins, it is suggesting that we have been given the capability to control the actions that we take and ways to process the various senses with the mind. The senses get their energies from the subtle pranas, which we have discussed as part of a separate video, which is titled 33 Vedic Deities of Rig Veda and the Sacred Connection to Our Spine. You may want to catch up on that video. Supporting the senses are the five pranas, the subtle energies described in the Vedas, Upanishads, and the Upavedas. The prana is governing inhalation, attention, sensory intake, like apana is grounding, elimination, and it is also the downward flow. Samana is like assimilation, digestion, balancing, and udana is all about the upward movement, speech, and the higher states. Vayana is circulation, integration, and expansion throughout the body. Modern science sees these as reflections of respiration, digestion, circulation, neural signaling, and homeostatic balance. When Ayurveda speaks of prana, neuroscience speaks of oxygen flow, vagus nerve activity, and autonomic regulation. It's sort of saying the same things, but it's two different languages, like one is speaking a Vedic language and the other is speaking a science language. Two languages that are being spoken, but it's still one reality that a human experiences in the form of senses and how we process all our sensory inputs, the perception of the world, and how we form the consciousness itself of our life on this earth. The senses cannot function without the pranas. Smell draws on apana, rooted in earth, grounding our body. Taste is sustained by samana, digestion and assimilation. Vision rises with udana, the fire of clarity and higher perception. Hearing aligns with prana, attention carried by the breath. That is why we say, when I heard that, it took my breath away, or my heart skipped a beat. Touch spreads through vayana, the integrating force of circulation. This sort of intricate weaving ensures that perception is not just data collection, but an embodied experience and builds up our consciousness. Neuroscience echoes this as well. Perception is not in the eye or ear alone. It is distributed, processed, integrated by networks across the brain and the body. Let's closely look at what happens when we sleep. In waking life, senses and pranas are active and they are outward looking. In dreams, they turn inward, generating inner images. But in deep sleep, shushupti, both senses and pranas withdraw into the heart as described in the Prashna Upaniṣhad. The senses rest, no perception occurs. The pranas continue only subtly, maintaining but no outward activity distracts them. This integration creates the experience of blissful rest. Neuroscience parallels this in non-REM deep sleep, when the brain's sensory networks fall silent, the default mode network deactivates, and the heart-brain rhythms synchronize. Deep sleep is not unconsciousness but integration, a return to the self or the soul. Thus, we see that the five senses are our gateways, the five pranas are our currents, and together they define our waking, dreaming, and the deep sleep worlds. While we are in deep sleep mode, they merge into the heart, leaving only pure awareness beyond the senses and beyond the prana. This cycle reminds us that life is not just activity, but it's a rhythm and an orchestration. In science, we renew. In integration, we find wholeness. And in deep sleep, we glimpse the bliss of the self and the soul that underlies all the experiences.